My favorite part about this coffee is that it's at a drinkable temperature right out of the carafe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's why I like pour overs. Pour overs is my preferred choice. Yeah.
I'm definitely getting some more fruity notes, but a clean finish indeed.
Damn.
Yes.
You're making me feel bad because I'm like, I'm not ready to start, but he said rolling. And you talking water right now. I'm like, fuck. Yeah, that's just, that's exactly what it should taste like.
It is, right? That's how you made it.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love the operation.
I always get super hot before we start.
You know, I'm actually very familiar with this world. I worked in my first 6 years in production, more or less. So going from being a on-set production assistant as like an 18-year-old with Nicki Minaj to directing and producing social first ads with Jake Paul and so the world of cameras and lights and grip and electric and light gags and sound and audio design is very, very natural to me. And it's actually, when you understand how the sausage is made, you have a lot of respect because so many people sit at home consuming 2, 3, 4 hours a night of Netflix and Hulu and podcasts, but they don't really know how it was made.
Yeah. So thank you for coming, bro, because
very impressive.
You know what it takes to build this, and for 4 years now, because we're in 2024, I always wanted to do it, and then I never did it until I found Nestor. I didn't know it was Nestor, but Nestor
Shout out Nestor.
Nestor's the secret sauce.
Everybody needs to know who Nestor is.
Facts. You already know. Well, on that note, let's get it popping.
I can't wait.
Ya tu sabe.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
You said ya tu sabe behind the scenes before we started rolling, and that was like, that brought me home.
You know it's really, for me, I try to find if we think about all of the people that are in our life, and then we think about all the people that we don't know, the reality is that we have so much more in common than we have differences with people that we don't know. Mm-hmm. But our circles are just an amalgamation of the people that we see and spend the most time with, which is so important because it shapes your friendships, your career paths, your personal ambitions, just as a byproduct of being around different people. And for me, I always try to find the commonality between me and the person sitting across the table or at a dinner or in a conversation, because as vastly different as you might think they are than you, because they grew up in a different place or different socioeconomic status, or they practice a different religion, we have so much more in common than we have different.
I felt that. I hear that. That makes me think of when you arrived, bro. Like, you're in the Bronx right now. You know what I mean?
I'm in the Bronx.
You're in the Bronx right now. So it was cool that you said the secret sauce to this podcast is also us hosting it in the Bronx. And honestly, it's like an honor hosting people up here, because majority of the people who we've had on were like, I've actually don't remember the last time I was here, or like, I've never been to the Bronx before, So I'm glad you made it up here. We're actually trying to shoot last week, but then we couldn't because there was a snowstorm. You had business to take care of. But we're back, and then you made the time, bro. So I appreciate you for coming. It truly means a lot.
There's so much more in the Bronx than just Yankee Stadium. I don't, it's such a, so I run the New York City Marathon every year. I've done it. This is 8 consecutive years for me.
Wow.
And my favorite part of the New York City Marathon is the Bronx, by far, because I'm dead. It's like miles 16, 17, and 18. Every muscle in my body is cramped up. Mm-hmm. I am on the verge of tears a lot of times. I'm just muscling through it. And, usually I try to run with a group of people every year and add people to that group to run. But when I get to the Bronx, life is breathed into me because of the energy on the streets in the Bronx. So I at least have that connection every year with the Bronx.
That's dope. Yeah, I've seen people run it. There's like a group called We Run Uptown group. And when the people get to a certain mile, like the cheering on that I see on social, I'm like, that's dope. I want to do that too. I saw this clip that you said you want to do it for 15 years consecutively, and how you wanted to make it bigger than you. And I was intrigued because it got so personal so quick. And I was like, he wants to run for 15 years. I was like, I got to make it 1 year. But you started talking about a condition that your mom had and then one of your friends. So I wanted you to get into that because it was so dope to hear you talk about how this is bigger than you, but it's so challenging for you and you prepare for that. And I'm like, how does this guy prepare with the lifestyle you live? Because we both live very busy lifestyles. You know what I mean? You're like the VP of core relationships at VaynerMedia with Gary V. I could imagine how busy that road is. You know what I mean? So how do you balance yourself to be able to prepare for something like a marathon, bro? Because like I try to run and get the sauce, but you got to give me the key right now.
So the key is that life is a marathon. The key is that we as individuals think that we can accomplish much more than we can in a single year, and we undersell how much we can accomplish over the course of a decade. So when you're constructing your goals and what you want out of life and what you want to achieve, everybody thinks, what can I finish in the next 12 months? Nobody, very few, say, what can I accomplish in the next decade? So every time I look at a goal or a big audacious thing I want to throw out in front of myself, I don't think about it as what can I accomplish in 12 months? I think about what can I accomplish in 10, 15, 20 years? And one of those goals was, it is my opinion that the New York City Marathon is the best day, single day of the entire year to be a New Yorker. Think about this. 70,000 people from all over the world come to New York City to experience New York City.
Yeah.
Millions of people, 2 million plus people from New York City flood the streets to cheer on 70,000 strangers, many of which aren't even from our country. There is no other event in our country, let alone in this city, where we embrace people from other lands and different places who think, feel, believe different things than we may, like the New York City Marathon. So for me, it's the best day, bar none, to be a New Yorker. Everybody should run a marathon at least once in their life. It teaches you a lot about who you are and who you want to be.
Wow.
Brings you to a place that you probably haven't gone before for a lot of people as well. And for me, the New York City Marathon, I have a really, really lovely back history story with it. And it started out as super selfish. When I moved to New York City, my first apartment, I lived with a bunch of guys crammed inside of an apartment in Fidei, 5 other guys. 3 of them were getting ready to run the New York City Marathon. And 2 weeks before the marathon, they were going out on their big, long 18-mile run. Me, as an athlete, but somebody who hadn't gotten into running yet, said, I'm going to come and run 18 miles with you today. And they laughed in my face. I finished that 18-mile run with them that day. And I said, I want to run the New York City Marathon in 2 weeks with you guys. And they said, that is not how this works. I was like, what do you mean? They were like, you have to qualify. You have to raise money. You've got to do all these things in order to run the New York City Marathon. And much like my entire life and my entire life story thus far, I always find a side door. So I understand that there are certain ways that things have to be done, but I also understand that you can buy a bib on Craigslist to run the New York City Marathon for $300. So that's what I did. And I ran it as 57-year-old, I'll have to bleep out his name, Joseph Strempek from New Jersey. So 21, 22-year-old me runs the marathon as a 57-year-old, and I beat all of my roommates. So from this incredible place of self-absorption and confidence,
wow,
a love for running was born. But what happened next was more important. I said to myself, wait a second, this whole marathon thing is incredibly selfish. I dedicate all these times and hours into making myself better. I show up every year. I expect everybody to donate to my cause. I expect everybody to show up to celebrate me in the streets. What am I giving to other people? I'm not giving anything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my mom was diagnosed with a very rare form of lymphoma that I said to myself, I finally have something that's bigger than me that I can work towards. And not long after that, another friend was diagnosed with leukemia. And it was just the light bulb went off. I can dedicate this run every year to people that are dealing with leukemia and lymphoma. And I started to run the New York City Marathon every year on behalf of the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And this is going on year 9.
Wow.
I've committed to run 15 consecutive years specifically for that cause and raise $1 million over that course of time and bring along more people along the way. So it's on you now to let me know when you want to run the New York City Marathon over the next 11 years.
That I was actually going to bring up, last Sunday, this is the Don's table. Me and my friends got together. It was like when the Arctic blast came through, like a few days right after you flew out. And we were like, yeah, we should catch a run, man. We got to get on our fitness. We went to Van Cortlandt Park, ran out like in the outside of the park, and we called it the Don's Run Club. It was like at the Don's table, Don Carvajal, the Don's Run Club. And then I changed it to Island Boys because we're all from island in the world. And then now we just want to make it generic. But there's a community out there, bro. It's really refreshing to see that. So I'm definitely gonna pick you up on that, and I'm definitely gonna bring my homies through. We're gonna train. We're gonna train in the Bronx and prepare for it, and then we're gonna go through every other borough.
One of the questions you asked me, you said, "How do you prepare given kind of your busy life?"
Yeah.
How does one prepare to run a marathon or do something physically exhausting when so many other things in their life are pulling them in the opposite direction? And for me, I think what I've realized over time is that we're capable of so much more if we believe in ourselves. So the good news is you could run a marathon tomorrow. You could run a marathon right now. Like you could get on the street. It might take you 6 or 7 hours, but you could easily run a marathon today. And a lot of other people, they shut something off in their brains when they think about big goals like that, something that might be scary to them. They say, I can't, I won't. And then that voice repeats every time something big or scary comes up, something they're not accustomed to or they don't do. And now we've created an identity for ourselves of I can't and I won't. And for me, and why I was so excited to be on the show today was because when I said I put out into the world, I was like, I want to do a couple podcasts talking about relationships and the way that I think about building relationships and my time working for Gary. When you reached out, I said, great, like I'll see you next week. And it was just like that. And I think for so many people that there might be something standing in front of them right now that they're afraid to do because they haven't done it before. They're scared to do because it seems scary and it's foreign. It really is this mental blockade and barrier where if you switch from a mindset of saying I can, I won't, and I can, I will, you can do whatever you want. And by the way, we didn't start this conversation with, how fast did you run the New York City Marathon? Because there's 5% of people that actually care about that.
Right.
We started the conversation with, you run the New York City Marathon every year. You've run it for 8 consecutive years. That's amazing.
Yep. I agree.
Big difference.
I agree. I actually love running. If I had to choose between going to the gym and running, I prefer running. And once I discovered outdoor running, because I used to always run at the gym. I never really ran outside. Once I discovered that, I was like, yo, this is game changer. Especially at the park with some gravel. Like, oh, this is different.
It is. It's therapeutic.
Yeah, bro, it's beautiful. I don't like to think. I'm just in my own world. It's therapeutic. It's a vibe.
There's so many books written about that feeling that you're feeling. There's a book called What I Think About When I Think About Running. And it's just basically like poetry about what goes on in the human brain while you're running. There's another book called Born to Run, but there's a lot of literature and they're great audiobooks to listen to while you're running. But it is some people find that in different forms of movement. Some people fall into yoga and it becomes this incredible release for them. Some people it's running. Some people like to go to the gym. I think what it is though is we realize what happens to our brains when we move our bodies. And the results are profound.
Yeah. Running is the best thing ever, bro. Like to me, that's definitely my escape. And it's such a big sense of community for me because my friends actually encouraged me to do it, and then I encouraged them. So like yesterday, I called my boy Harry at like 6 a.m. Like, yo, you up? Yeah, you want to just go for a run? It's like I just woke up, but I'm down, and we just hit it. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And then today at like 10 a.m., he's like, yo, what up? What are you doing today? I was like, well, I have a podcast later. We have to squeeze that running right now. He's like, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? So It's that sense of community. It was really dope. I wanted to ask you because you posted something on your story today, and it was about caffeine, New York caffeine, and what was the other piece? New experiences. And this is a culmination of that. So thank you for coming. Do you think that's interesting how the timing came out? Because you posted that and then Nelly flagged it, and I was like, yeah, that's so funny. That's those 3 things are what he's gonna experience today.
It's every day I try to do something that's new to me. And I think not in a cliche way where I try to do something every day that scares me, but in the sense of just try to push myself a little bit beyond my comfort zone. And I know that there's a movement right now going on around coffee, and people are switching to teas and different stuff. I love caffeine. It is amazing. It is the best drug, in my opinion, ever created. So
I agree.
This, like I said, I feel very at home today.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're enjoying some Dominican coffee, bro. Like that's the whole point of what I do, why I do what I do. So I'm glad you get to enjoy that, man.
It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I wanted you to tell the viewers more about your role. Like, what does it look like to be the VP of core relationships? Like, did that role exist 100 years ago? You know what I mean? And what does that mean today? What is your take on that? I feel like most people are probably like, I don't know what that is. So could you break down more what your day-to-day is like or what your responsibilities are?
So I'm the VP of core relationships for Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk has 2,000 employees plus globally with 14 global offices. And he's invested in me in a non-sales, non-transactional way to represent him in the world by meeting interesting people, cultivating real relationships, and then watching how life plays out over time. Because if I'm any good at my job, the only reason that we will do business together in the future is because we like each other. We do business with people that we like,
Right.
Period. And what happens is that when you're running a business, you're so obsessed with the bottom line and making money that you look at spreadsheets and the efficiency of people's time and energy, and you calculate that into a number. But what I try to do every day, and this job did not exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, was I try to create serendipity and magic on Gary's behalf, because being out in the world, energetically bouncing off people, creates opportunity that didn't exist prior. And when people show up to meetings and conversations to do business, the conversation goes, here's what I can give. Here's what you want. Here's what I can give. Here's what I want. Can we make a deal? And that is the vast majority of operations in business. The way I approach business and relationships is I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your family. I want to understand what motivates you. I want to understand where you want to be in 10 years. I want to understand your insecurities, and I want to understand your biggest ambitions. And naturally, over time, I want to figure out how to make those things make sense for both of us. But it's not going to be on my time clock or your time clock. It's going to be when it makes sense for both of us. So Gary invests millions of dollars into what I do every year. It is a wild statement that the CEO of a company invests millions of dollars into long-tail relationship building on his behalf. But we have incredible people at the org that do what I do in the world in different areas. So we have an incredible guy named Mike Boyd, who's managed Gary's relationships and music for over a decade. So when you see Gunna in the office in 2017, that's Mike Boyd.
That's dope. I saw that. Yeah.
When you see Dave East in the office on the podcast last week, that's Mike Boyd.
Nipsey.
It's when you see Gary in the studio with Nipsey building a real relationship. Like, let's not get it confused. That's not somebody speaking at a conference and getting paid. That's like a real, I fuck with you.
Yeah.
And you can see when you watch those videos, you know, there's nothing there but admiration and love and respect mutually. There's nothing to get out of on either side. There's a common respect. And I think we love to open up those doors. You know, Ice Spice is in the Starry Super Bowl commercial happening. Mike Boyd built a relationship with Ice Spice and her team years ago. So those are a few examples of how things come to fruition over time in the practical sense of how business gets done.
Yeah.
But that's how I look at relationships. You know, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that people are going to stab you in the back.
Right.
What actually happens is and I agree with this, is that you are the sum of the people that you spend the most time with. So in the most simplistic sense, if you hang around cheaters, you're going to cheat. If you hang around people that are scammers, you're going to be a scammer. If you hang around winners, you're going to win. And I've been super fortunate in my life and my career to continue to elevate the people that I hang around with. And when I think about for everybody listening right now, when you take real inventory of the people that you spend time with, are those people bringing you to a place that you ultimately want to be, or are they dragging you to a place that you don't want to go? And it's hard to shake ourselves out of that in the moment because we have love for people and they've been there for a while. But the reality is you are the sum of the people that you spend the most time with.
That's real. One of the questions I wanted to get into was, how do you build such a strong relationship with Gary? Because you're managing these relationships for him, and it's that sense of like, okay, Gary knows you would never stab him in the back because he invests all this into you and to everything you do for the org and him. How do you build these relationships through time? Because I know you guys have been working together over a decade. How do you put that in place, that foundation of trust, and just like, I know you're always going to do right by us?
So this one for me is the most important. When people have their back against the wall, they do things that is out of character. When people feel safe, secure, and loved, they act in accordance with their values and who they want to be in the world. What Gary does remarkably well is that he creates an environment where people feel safe, secure, heard, and taken care of. It's when people feel threatened and like they're running out of options where they do things like stab people in the back. So it's a question that everybody needs to ask themselves as operators, as managers of people, as parents, as siblings. Am I creating an environment for the people that I love and care about that makes them feel safe, secure, heard? Mm-hmm. Or am I painting somebody into a corner? Because when that person's painted into a corner, you ever like watch a video of like a lion in a zoo painted up against a corner, and despite the handler that it works with every single day that feeds it, mm-hmm. it lashes out? Yeah. No different.
That's real.
And I think regardless of, again, like I've been with Gary for 10 years. He's created repetition of communication with me that makes me feel safe, secure, heard, supported. And because of all of those things, he knows that I wouldn't act out of accordance. And that said, I am sure 2 years from now, if we hadn't talked in 2 years, but I was still working for him, that dynamic would change. But it's on us to cultivate those relationships, mm-hmm. and then continue to feed them over time, as opposed to, oh, we had a great experience one time, mm-hmm. and they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever heard the saying, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success?
I have.
That's what it feels like this is giving. You know what I mean? And like people see you where you're at and they're like, oh, this guy, he works with Gary. He got it. He's good. But it's like people don't know that you were one of the first employees of the company. I think it was 20 or something when you joined. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was less than 100. And, today in terms of like, we're 2,000 employees globally, and I'm probably sitting in the top 20 of people that are still at the company, which is insane. I think we don't respect people with gray hair enough.
Facts. Or no hair at all.
Or no hair at all. Our culture, this is one thing that the Polynesians get really right, is, and other cultures pretty much everywhere outside of the US, mm-hmm. is that we have such admiration, respect, and care for the people that came before us that we think that we can learn from them and that there is so much wisdom to glean from them. And unfortunately, in our country, we don't believe the same. We discard our elderly. We put them in homes, and we mock them. They don't know how to use technology accordingly, and we make fun of them. There was a trend going last year on TikTok where somebody would pretend that their parents' favorite celebrity had died, and they would go, oh my God, can you believe John Bon Jovi had died? And their parents would lose their mind, and then they'd make fun of them. Really twisted. And
that's dark.
It's dark. And my point in sharing all of that is that when I think about my work for Gary over the past decade, it's because I had an extreme respect for the wisdom that he had that I wanted to glean and learn from over time. And for me, I think in our country specifically, we don't respect the people that have come before us enough. We think that we know, especially with the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
We're like, AI wasn't here when you were growing up, so you can't know.
Right. Since you said that, it reminded me of a time I spent in Seattle. and I was hanging out with Ephraim from Bunbuna Coffee, and he was putting me on how in Ethiopia and in that part of the world, there's a thing called the jebena. Like in DR, we use the mocha pot. We use drip machines here. Yeah. Over there is a jebena. It's like probably one of the first coffee makers in the world. And the person who gets the first cup of coffee is actually the eldest. And then it goes from there. And then it has different brew cycles, but you start with the eldest in the room, and then you go from top down. And that to me, it was like, that's dope. I was like, I'm never going to forget incredible. That, because it was that sense of like, that's where we come from. And it sucks that we're losing that now.
You know, it's one of the things that I try to put more into the forefront of my consciousness in the way that I interact with people every day. And it's not because I'm starting to get gray hair myself as much as it's truly something that I believe in. But I've always loved, so I'm 33 years old, and I love the fact that I'm right in between two sides. I'm right in between the 23-year-old and the 43-year-old. The 43-year-old is at the top of their professional kind of like hierarchy. Usually they're really reaching their stride. They're dominating. Mm-hmm. The 23-year-old is in the very beginning of their professional career and journey for the most part. And I am somewhere right in the middle. And my ability to pull those two ends together is something that I'm enjoying a lot of right now. So bringing a 23-year-old. So there's this concept of crystallized intelligence versus fluid intelligence. Mm-hmm. Crystallized intelligence is what we see in people with real wisdom, that have seen things, that have been through experiences over the course of a lifetime. Fluid intelligence is what you have. I think this is how it works. I'm going to go try it. Oh, this is how it works. Mm-hmm. And it reinforces that belief in something. And we just kind of intuitively, we get it. But crystallized intelligence is like that real wisdom. And I'm really enjoying this chapter in my life of being the person that pulls together the crystallized and fluid intelligence into a single room, because I think magic things can happen when you respect both ways of thinking.
Yeah. So I have a personal belief that every 5 years old, you're a completely different human being.
According to your skin 7.
There you go.
Your skin deteriorates. The layers on your skin right now will deteriorate over time. And in 7 years, you'll have a completely new skin set.
That's crazy.
And skin is the largest organ.
I was close enough.
You are. You're so right on.
I always say that in terms of growth and things like that, right? But at the higher up I've gone, the faster it reached that point. And like, bro, you started so early, and you're now at 33. It's like, how has the evolution of you happened through time? And as your roles got higher, how did you manage that, right? Because there has been so much growth. And the good thing about you is that you've worked in so many different roles that you have a great, solid understanding, even when you walk onto a podcast set, because you know what it takes to set this up, even to the tape. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's beautiful that you had that trajectory and that you're at where you're at, because you have an understanding of everything below it. I feel like a lot of people just go into that role and they don't really understand. Like, oh, I got an MBA, I'm going to go straight to the top. You don't really understand the bottom. You know what I mean? So what has that trajectory been like? And then on the level that you're at now, what does your day-to-day look like, and how do you manage yourself and keep that same sense of productivity?
So there's two ways of thinking about this. There's specialists and there's generalists. Specialists are people that dedicate the majority of their life to understanding one thing remarkably well. And generalists are people that have an innate curiosity that exists within them, that they want to know everything about everything. I am much more of a generalist than a specialist. Where I think we've lost the script a little bit is placing more value in the things that specialists say. There's a wealth of knowledge and confidence that you can derive from going through life's experiences yourself and knowing that when you drink hot coffee, it's hot.
Right.
You have to burn your tongue on it before you know it's hot, right? So for me, when I think about the amalgamation of all my experiences in life, from being a photographer to working on production sets to directing people, to working in new business, to launching new entities within VaynerX alongside Gary, to becoming more operationally savvy, I look at that amalgamation of experiences and I think that I'm actually really well equipped to do a lot of things as opposed to just a singular thing. And there's a great book about this, which outlines people like Tiger Woods. People would look at Tiger and they would say, Tiger is the greatest golfer of all time, which is categorically true. Tiger is also an incredibly flawed human being.
Correct.
Which is incredibly true. It is up for the public to debate if his laser focus on a singular thing came at the detriment of him not being able to be a well-rounded participant in our society. And I think it is something that's worth debating amongst people, because we look at Tiger as somebody who is 1 in a billion, which he is. And we idolize pieces of him, and we should. But when we think about the people that we identify for role models for our children, for future generations, are we idolizing people for their specific ability to do one thing, or are we idolizing them for their ability to do a lot of things really, really well and contribute to the greater success of our society as a whole?
It makes me think a lot about the grind, bro. I was telling Nelly, since you mentioned that, like, as human beings, bro, like, we just learning and growing. And I was speaking with Nelly and Harry about, like, Seth was our previous guest before Piff Marty, and he mentioned in the video, he was like, yo, bootstrapping is nearly impossible. Like, y'all barely got boots and no straps. You know what I mean? And it's the evolution of us, bro, like, looking at people like Tiger. It's like we become so good at one thing, bro, that sometimes we lack other things. Even for me, like, I'm so focused on being an entrepreneur and being so locked in, and now I launched this podcast. And, like, this thing is picking up steam faster than I envisioned it to. I knew it was going to be big because I don't do nothing if it's not going to create impact in the community and provide value. But I just didn't know it was going to be that soon. And now I'm, like, managing so many things. And it goes back to that thing of, like, damn, man, it's all about finding that balance for ourselves. And that's been this week for me.
I have some thoughts on that if you're open to them.
I always take thoughts.
Right.
You're on the Don's table. Now this is your table, baby.
I'm enjoying it. Would you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Would you indulge me? What does success look like as it relates to the business? Not the podcast, not you. What does success look like as it relates to the business?
In terms of the business,
yes,
I want to create a company that creates value for our community members. And
Great.
That's the people who work for us and the people who consume our product. On top of that as well, we have an agricultural product, which means that we work with farmers in other countries. I want to provide value at the origin. How can we give back to the root of this whole supply chain? I think that modern coffee companies, if not all of them, we make the big bang because we're at the coffee shops, we're at the supermarkets, and we're at the chain. We're at the ending of it. We make all the money, but nobody takes care of the origin, or at least they say they do. That's one of the biggest missions I have. And it's like, how do we pour back money into the origin? Everybody's B certified and 1% for the planet. That's great. That's cool. Why isn't there a farmer certification? USDA is nothing about the farmers. It's actually about the organic compounds within the product.
Mm-hmm.
So number one is creating value at the origin. 2, creating a space for our community. You know, it's been dope in my journey coming across people that find value in what I find value in. Like putting on for the community, opening the door for other people, trusting them, and enabling this environment for us to all grow through a thing called coffee.
I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of entrepreneurs, when they think about what success looks like, they're playing on a scoreboard that's dictated by a number that relates to revenue.
Right.
I want to create $1 billion company.
Right.
And money becomes the scoreboard. And what you realize is, if you have enough in you, you will be able to get to that space. Meaning, if you started this conversation with, I want to build $1 billion coffee company. I want to build a coffee company bigger than Starbucks. Then you would look at the impact of that business surely on a revenue-based model.
Right.
And what I've seen from all of my exposure to entrepreneurship and really, really successful entrepreneurs, people that have exited for hundreds of millions of dollars, is they pour every ounce of themselves into attaining that goal, which is a revenue-based outcome. And then they get their money and they realize they don't feel any different than they did the day before.
That's crazy.
If anything, they feel worse.
That's wild.
Because they don't have meetings to go to. They don't have people reporting into them. And all of their purpose and identity has been stripped away from them. So for the first time in their life, they need to make decisions about what they want as opposed to the numerical significance of a revenue target. And what I've realized is, and this is the fun part as an observer, I watch everybody go on the same journey. Drive revenue, have a financial outcome, have an oh shit moment, go on an eat, pray, love journey, try hallucinogens, any type of tea ceremony, travel 12 months out of the year, date 15 people.
Burning Man.
Go to Burning Man. And I don't even say that to throw shade on Burning Man. It's just so cliche and unfortunate. But when you don't start from a place of deeper purpose, meaning other people, your reservoir will run dry so quick and your clothes will be stripped off of you and you will have no identity because the money won't make you happy. So for me, when I think about why or what it takes to do it, I think less about people and their ability to achieve a revenue-based outcome, and I think more about that person's ability to define a goal that's much bigger than themselves.
Leading on that topic, I want to get into the term tribes. Seth, you already know I got the best-selling book, Tribes. I actually read that book in college, and then I met him out at Farmer's Market. Blew my mind. Crazy. But I'm like, aren't you?
Is it crazy, though?
No.
Meaning it's not.
No, the world works like that.
I read Gary's book in college. I tweeted at him. And that is how I got my job at VaynerMedia.
You look at that.
And I just think people forget how every single human is just a human walking around this planet doing the same shit you are.
Right.
We put people on pedestals.
Facts.
And then we tear them down when they don't act in accordance with what we want to see out of them.
That's real. I haven't heard something that real since the last episode. It'd be the guest that dropped the real stuff. You know what I mean? So getting into tribes, bro.
Yes.
I think Gary and VaynerMedia has done a great job at building a tribe. Even like V-Friends. Like I met Gary at Chuck E. Cheese on his birthday because Liz Peralta invited me. She's a V-Friend. You know what I mean? It's like...
It's incredible.
Right? So it's just connecting the dots. And then Liz is actually the one who sent me your story.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how the world works. But how would you say you guys build tribes? Seth mentioned that you can't build a tribe. You just lead them. People exist and they believe in things and they have values. And when you guys align, that's when they join your tribe or vice versa. How would you say you guys build tribes or you've built tribes? I know you have an assistant, you have a team, you have people under you that you manage. How do you build a tribe in your team? What does that look like for you guys?
First, I would go back and listen to whatever Seth said before you listen to what I'm about to say, just out of fairness and respect for Seth. But what I've learned from working alongside Gary is he is the message from the top that trickles down into everything that we do. So if Gary says, I don't give a shit if you're the highest earner in this company and you sell in the most new business, if you're a dickhead to your colleagues and peers, you will last 5 seconds here. That is a message that people hear and people rally around that message. And that consistency of messaging from the top, I think, is really important. So when he over communicates the things that we care about as an organization, it helps people self-select whether or not they want in or they want out. And then I think, and this is probably the most important, if you're trying to bring people along with you, the only thing you have to do is have a dream and a goal that's big enough for everybody's dreams and goals to fit within. Let me say it again. If you're trying to build a team and bring people along with you, the only thing you need to do is have a dream and a goal that's so big that other people's dreams and goals can fit within. Gary wants to buy the New York Jets.
Facts. And we're going to do that.
Gary wants to build the biggest modern day communications company in the world that's privately held. You know, I woke up out of bed and I didn't have goals that big. I'm self-aware. I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I know what I want out of this life. And those goals are all big enough for me to fit my goals within. And now there's 2,000 people that work at VaynerX that have goals and dreams that are big enough to fit within Gary's massive vision for what we're trying to do.
Wow.
So that's the big one for me.
Wow. You know, every guest that comes gives me a wow moment, and I just be quiet for like 5 seconds, and people write like chats and reviews like, you should have responded right after. And I'm like, nah, homie. The same way you processing that, imagine me in real time taking in this conversation. You watching it from home on your couch. We're in the flesh.
And I think with a lot of podcasts and a lot of people that might be listening right now, everybody tries to fill dead space.
Right.
And this is like one of my bigger tips for building relationships with people is if you're a great interviewer, and this is actually something I learned from my production world, you're not afraid of dead space.
Correct.
So there's an exercise that you can do when you're an interviewer and you're interviewing somebody on camera where you ask them a question and then you don't say anything else. Because inherently what the person does that's being interviewed is they just fill the dead air.
Wow.
So you can ask somebody like a really leading question, or you can ask somebody a very vague question and then pause for 30 seconds in between their response. And the intuitive reaction from somebody is to fill the space. But I appreciate that you are okay with leaving the dead air.
That's beautiful. Well, yeah, this podcast, like people ask me, how do you guys edit it? How do you guys cut it? It's all straight. Like if we shoot an hour and 5 minutes, you're going to get an hour and 5 minutes.
Straight to tape.
Like it's just straight. I like it being raw and real. You know what I mean? I don't think we have enough realness nowadays. And that's what I pride us on. Like even if I make an error or make a mistake, I want you to see that because we're just human, just like you were saying. And I don't think we have that enough. There's so many standards nowadays. I'm like, yo, bro, just chill out. Life is too short to take it that serious.
Totally.
You know? So that's the approach to the pod.
Well, I think your willingness to try things again that are outside of your comfort zone, you know, it has been a part of. It's just been inside of you forever. Like it's from when you went back home to the Dominican to. You said, were you the first kid in your family to go to college?
Yeah.
Think about what that means. You know, like think about. You know, now I know it's commonplace and it's not. You know, college is, you know, of course we're going to college, but
You too.
I was the first kid in my family to go to college and traditional 4-year university. And, you know, I think doing things that seem foreign can teach you a lot about life. Yeah.
I agree. I actually launched my business in college because everything I learned in my marketing class, I would just copy, paste it, and like restructure it to be Dunkin' Rahal. So I was learning about Porsche, BMW, all these brands, and I was like, how did they build this with the business plan and the marketing? And then I was like, well, if they did it, why can't I? You know what I mean?
They did it, and they did it for 100 years.
Right.
So you've just got to be cool with you not being around to see it's.
That always blows my mind, but I'm excited for it.
You have to be.
And the logo of the company is actually my grandfather, so he's not with us anymore.
Incredible.
But it's cool that his life lives on. Yeah. Imagine my mom walking into a supermarket and being like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
is that my father?" You know what I mean? So that's always a cool reaction.
It's amazing.
In your journey, bro, you've helped so many creative people succeed, and you've worked on so many campaigns. What is your creative process like?
Yeah.
Like you've learned so much throughout the years, bro. It's just
I've realized that what makes me different from most people, or what I should say is what makes me unique. You know, the thing about me, like what's unique about my fingerprint, right? And what's unique about my fingerprint is when somebody comes to me with a problem or a challenge, I am able to think about the people, places, things, opportunities, and how to unite those people to accomplish something. So I'll try to say that in a different way. Building a decentralized company is the concept of how do I use resources from this part of the world? How do I use an executive from this part of the world? How do I use a public figure from this part of the world? And how do I set a table for them to all sit down and accomplish something where it's mutually beneficial, it makes sense, and previously they would have never known each other existed. And for me, that is the thing that gives me the most life. There is no deal that I can do that has any dollar figure attached to it that makes me more happy than when I introduce a group of people and they go on to accomplish something without me interjecting. It is the greatest feeling in the world. It is the greatest feeling in the world for me to bring two people together and have them to go on to create something of value without me attached to it. And for me, it's been most of my life in my career. And I think about the reoccurring nature of what that looks like in a decade from today or 2 decades from today. And there's people that have come before me that I've modeled parts of my life and my career off of. And these are people that go on to being the executive producer of films, to bringing together band members to create some of the most iconic bands of all time.
That's dope.
These are people that sit on the boards of the most prolific publicly traded companies. And it's their ability to think in a decentralized manner about how to bring people and ideas together. And that is what I enjoy doing the most. And for a lot of people, it seems abstract and it might even seem a little bit woo-woo of, well, what do you mean? Like, come on, are we selling cups? Are we selling coffee? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And for me, it's thinking about if you were to say to me, one of the things we really want to do is we want to expand the brand to Australia. We have no penetration in Australia. Coffee's super underserved there. It's an area of the business we think would explode and we think they would really gravitate to our story. But I've never been to Australia in my life and I have no idea of how to get in front of those people. Most people would just say, okay, well, like you've got to find an on-the-ground retailer and you've got to find some big voices over there and you've got to pump the radio and TV waves and like cross your fingers and hope for the best. Like that's the logical process that most people would go through to figure out how to make the business work in Australia. And the way I think about it would be massively different. I would think about all of the places, like I would think about all of the people, places, and things that don't currently have access to great coffee. I would think about the most prolific public surfer. I would think about the cultural nuances that make Australia unique. And then I would think about the most influential people in Australia that have never been to the DR. And I would say, instead of us going over there, we're going to bring people to us. So we're going to pick 5 people. We're going to do a trip to the DR, and we're going to document the whole thing.
That's beautiful.
And then when we go over to Australia, we're going to bring 5 of our people over there. So not are we just trying to create some like marketing message of why, we're like actually going to build ties with people that matter.
That's dope.
And then over time, we'll see how it plays out.
That's dope.
But I bet you by bringing those 5 people to the DR, by having them see, touch, taste, feel, that their connection to the brand and the business will be exponentially stronger than if you said, I have $20,000 for you to post an Instagram photo.
Right. I'm going to tell you now, we're going to work on a campaign together.
Can't wait.
He's going to be in there. So Nelly here, his
Yes.
name is Bellarminis.
Yeah.
He's actually the great grandson of the farm that we get our coffee from.
Incredible.
So it's crazy connection. He lives in New York, and we just got to connect. And I'm glad he's here right now because these are things we speak about, like how do we create more value for our motherland and actually show people how rich it is in culture and agriculture, in coffee and cacao and all these other things.
Everything is storytelling and everything is relationships. It's all it is. Mm-hmm. It truly, there is every war, every election cycle, every narrative around a publicly traded company, every marriage, every divorce is a relationship and a story. And when you can get people to understand the origin of that story, mm-hmm. and you can get people to emotionally connect with that story, you have a much better chance at influencing the way people think and act than if you don't tie those two things together.
You recently just mentioned about setting the table and putting people together, which made me think of the restaurant that I've been dying to visit. So it's Little Maven, right?
Yes.
You did that with Gary, and
Yep.
you're a part of that. Can you tell me the background story to that? Because I saw it and I was like, how did this happen? And as a New Yorker, I'm hype about it. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to know somebody, because if I got to wait outside and it's brick, I would love to skip the line. I'm just kidding.
Done deal.
But
Lifetime VIP fast pass.
Oh man, don't tell me. We out. But tell me more about it, bro. I saw it and it came about, and I was just excited. Like, wow, I've never seen, in my personal experience, a media company opening up a restaurant. How did that even come about?
Yeah, so Gary starts restaurants. I mean, Gary starts businesses when he's bored. So like most of us go on vacation, take a nap. When he's bored, he finds a way to start a new business. So that's just how that man is wired, and that's how most of these things come to fruition. But backing up a little bit, like one of my favorite Kanye lyrics is, how are you going to say I don't bring anything to the table when I'm the table? And I think we want so badly to be acknowledged by our peers and the people that we love. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much value to take away from just simply being the person that creates a space for other people to be a part of. So whether it's a run club, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a podcast, to be the person that brings people together is so much more impactful than standing on a stage someday and getting awarded some award.
Right.
So the restaurant game, it's one of my favorite. Emotionally, I'm connected to the idea of restaurants because I literally get to bring people in and feed people. That's Food is the ultimate unifier. Food breaks down all the walls, all the barriers. There's actually a lot of research that's been done on when you're negotiating or having a potentially tenuous situation, the majority of people are just hungry, tired, thirsty, just human needs. You can break down a lot of those things just simply by doing them in a restaurant setting. You bring people together, you put food on the table, security, safety, being taken care of.
Yep.
A lot of the tension in a situation can get cut. So you can do a lot of business at a restaurant.
That's the first thing I thought about.
You can do a lot of business at a restaurant. So, and it's quite frankly, I think it's the ultimate flex.
Facts.
For us to have a killer culinary experience, incredible service, to do it with people that we love and we care about, and then to be able to take care of people, feed people that we love and care about, and then get some business done is just icing on the cake. But yeah. I'll give you a little bit of backstory really quick. So VCR Group is a hospitality company started by Gary Vaynerchuk, Josh Capon, and David Rodolitz. Capon and Rodolitz have a long history in the hospitality business. These guys are absolute legends in New York City hospitality. And over COVID, they got together, the three of them, having a meal, and it just became painfully apparent that it was time for them to start a hospitality company together. Wow. And we started with the first project that we launched was Fly Fish Club, which during 2020 was released as a token-gated membership to a New York City private membership club. So you bought the membership using Ethereum, and then you would have access to that club when it opens. Happy to report it'll open in May of this year. It has been a massive build out.
Wow.
I can't wait to show you. It's 3 floors. There's a live music room. There's an omakase bar. There's a lounge. Like, it is proper. It'll be in New York's Lower East Side.
Nice.
The first restaurant that opened up that's a wholly owned VCR property is called Little Maven. It's on 16th and 7th, I believe. And it's modern American food. The design is sick. The playlist, I know you like music. The playlist is incredible. The menu is familiar, but the tastes are really rich and beautiful. Definitely a place you want to go retreat to on like a gloomy, cold New York City day and just kind of like, get cozy. And then we have 2 other restaurants that are in the pipeline. One I can't talk about, but the other one is called Ito. We Our partners on that was Chef Kevin Kim and Chef Masa. It's a Michelin star omakase restaurant in Tribeca.
That's fire.
It's so fun to start to, when I said bringing people to the table, not just in the literal sense of feeding people and bringing people to eat, but when you say, wait a second, Chef Masa and Chef Kevin are looking for a new restaurant opportunity. Okay, great. Like, can we make that happen? Who else do we bring to the table? And when I go back and I look at all of the investors and all of the people that touch that business, it's an amazing group of people. And now we all have this thing that unifies all of us, which is this restaurant. And it's phenomenal. So I just think that restaurants are one of the cooler ways to do it. It's been such a joy to be able to like bring people into that, but I can't wait for you to come eat.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love food.
Yeah, we love food.
Yeah,
we
my
love
version
food.
of that is a coffee shop. Like, let me host you and make you feel like you're home. Speaking of that, we're gonna host Gary, bro.
Great.
He said episode 55
in true Gary fashion. I heard.
Yeah,
man. Listen, he's a man of his word, and
any tips
for interviewing G?
Interviewing G,
the
bro.
big guy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Go back, watch the Diary of a CEO podcast. It's one of the episodes where I thought Stephen was able to really get to the core of Gary and what he cares about. I think you're going to be able to do that in this room. You got to get him to come here, work with his admin team. I'll help push it, but you got to get him to come here.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
If it takes 2 years, just you got to get him to come here.
Yes.
Because in his office, it's hard for him when he's in his zone working. That's his zone of genius. That's his place that he feels comfortable. It's hard for him to disassociate with his work life and thoughts when he's in that office that overlooks Madison Square Garden and all of New York City. It is badass, but this is different.
I like that we could bring people to the dance table and we get to bring you to our environment. We get to host you. It's beautiful, bro. So I really hope we do get to bring him whenever the time comes.
How many episodes are we at?
You're going to be number 7.
Okay, so we got some time.
So I told Nestor, I was like, yo, Nestor, we're going to start doing 2 a week, my boy. Because 55 is going to be real, bro.
That's good.
But the way the traction is going, just like Gary and you, like I have the coffee company. I also have a personal life. And the podcast was a fun venture that I wanted to do to provide value for my community. The reason why I created this podcast is because I have really dope conversations off camera, off record.
Yes.
We're really dope people. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do we bring these conversations to your home, to your phone while you're on the bus or the train? Maybe you want to start a brand. You don't know where to start. Let me bring a branding expert. You don't know how to tell a story. Let me bring Seth Godin. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna bring the GOAT of storytelling to tell you about how to tell a story.
It's what the biggest thing that I'll relate to here is like visibility is so important. So people from your community that look like you need to see somebody like you doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
They need to. Without it, it's just a bunch of fucking white dudes on podcasts talking.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough people doing stuff. That's the reason why I started the coffee company too. I didn't see anybody representing Dominican coffee that was Dominican, and I just really didn't see anybody putting on for the culture.
Yeah,
on its own.
You've got to get to Miami with that, just so you know.
Say less. I'm cooking.
Yeah,
we're cooking.
Good.
Don't let capital roll through, man. I love providing value for the listeners, bro. And this will be the closing out question.
Great.
You are the VP of Core Relationships, and relationship building is so important.
It's everything.
There you go. What advice would you give people who listen to this podcast, right? The whole point of this is coffee culture and business, which I think relates to anybody in one way or form. What kind of advice would you give people to start building relationships? You have one that's been expansive with Gary.
I got it.
And you actually manage relationships for a living. What advice would you give people to start managing relationships or just growing with people? It really sucks when people hit me up and it just feels like they hitting me up because they need something.
Ooh.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
How do people not do that?
Stop keeping count. Everybody that's running around the world right now is keeping a tally in their back pocket of, I did this for them, I paid for this drink, I bought them dinner, I wish them a happy birthday, and we develop this tally list of the things that we've done for other people in our life, expecting them to pay it back dollar for dollar.
Right.
And when they don't, we're let down. And it completely negates the entire idea of what we're trying to do here, which is build real relationships with people. Stop keeping count. It frees you so much. And it gives you the ability to not expect anything in return. And when you have no expectations of anything happening in return, anything that does happen is amazing. It's a gift.
Right.
So my biggest piece of advice is for everybody to stop keeping count.
That's real. I noticed that stuff because, like, let's say I've been on New York Times or I went viral one time, and people that I haven't spoken to in years, hey, how you been, man? I saw that thing. And it's like, man, it really sucks that you hit me up for that thing, you know?
For you too, and I think in the position that you're in where people might be seeing success in different ways, and I think the thing that I would do if I were you is I would erase any preconceived notions about what people want out of you. Mm-hmm. So you might get that text message and go, oh, fuck, of course he's hitting me up or she's hitting me up now.
Yeah.
And I would try as much as you humanly can to actually erase whatever emotion comes to the forefront and give that person 15 minutes. And do it again and again and again and again, because somebody's going to surprise you.
That's dope.
And for me, in my role today, and everybody wants something.
Right.
Everybody wants 15 minutes with Gary.
Right.
Everybody wants access to the guy. Everybody wants an investment. Everybody wants a reservation at a restaurant.
Right.
Everybody wants something.
Facts.
What's amazing about it is I keep no tally. I keep no list of good deeds done. And I operate from a place of, if I can give, over time, it will come back tenfold. And I'm not worried about when it'll come back to me because I know it's coming.
I felt that. I agree. That's how I move in business. I would say I'm the worst merch seller because I sell coffee. I brew you coffee. If I really like you, I'll be like, yo, that's on me. If we have dope cups, I'm like, yo, you enjoy that cup. If we have a dope hoodie, I'm like, yo, you take that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To me, it's like, I just want you to have it as a token of appreciation. And people always think that it comes with a bounce back. And it's like, nah, bro. I do stuff because I want to, not because I need something. And, if you noticed earlier, like you did, I didn't mention money when we spoke about companies' goals. And honestly, I always tell my friends and my colleagues, I'm like, yo, I really don't care about money. What can it do for us? Great. Are we surviving? Great. Do we have a roof? Great. Are we eating? Great. Do we drive? Great. Do we take the train? Okay. Bro, we come from a place where we barely had anything. You know what I mean? So
in media today, the vision of success has been painted that it's yachts and cars and loft apartments. And I think what we really recognized is a lot of those people are starved of real luxury. And that's human connection, places where they feel loved and supported. And you can't create a false environment for that. If people don't love you, they don't love you.
That's real. That was the note. That was the one. Nick, leaving y'all with the sauce right now.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It's been
bro.
amazing.
It's been a pleasure.
The coffee was great too.
That's what we do it for.